Hello and welcome to Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. I'm here with my friend medium Cynthia Rose, and today we want to talk about the topic of basically grief during the holidays. So especially right now, given the world events, not only do we have to deal with the grief of lost loved ones, but I think things are being really agitated by a lot of other conditions in place as well. So I think it's really important to talk about how to mitigate grief, how to deal with it, how to heal, and make the holidays a little bit brighter for yourself and also for your loved ones who are in spirit. So, Cynthia, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, yeah.
So I'm here in Tucson, Arizona. As you guys know, I'm back in my hometown, and so I had a chance to catch up with Cynthia, who is also a member of this community, so that's really awesome. And she's also a great medium, by the way. She's done work with me, and I really appreciate that. And I think also that you were saying some really fabulous things about grief and some ideas that can help people when they're grieving. And what kind of pops into your mind?
I think one of the things, especially because we're in the holiday season, is that some of you that have lost loved ones, sure, we might get signs from loved ones through nature. We're out on a walk and we're drawn to a bird that reminds us of someone that we love, and that's certainly a viable thing that can be happening. But I look at these kinds of signs as if you already can feel the presence of your loved one with you, then it's more about trusting that. So these signs that are external are reminders that we need to listen within. That when we have a thought come into our mind, we're not thinking about a loved one, but thought comes into our mind and we're just doing something completely different and something random comes, then it's a good time to welcome them into your space and to say hello to your loved ones. And that is something between you and them, to trust that new relationship that you have, that they're in spirit.
And so something I think is really important when people are grieving is to keep that loved one in your life. So there's some advice out there which I think is a bit flawed. So those of us who are involved in spiritual work and things like that, we tend to disagree with this idea, like you need to move on. So you shouldn't be thinking about your loved one, or you should not be including them because they're just a memory. Or these kinds of kinds of materialistic ideas that pop up, especially in Western culture. So if you're kind of on this path, you can kind of throw those ideas out the window, and something to try instead is actually sending messages to your loved ones via social media. Your loved ones who are deceased, but they still have their social media pages, their phone numbers. Because something we've discovered, including in fields of paranormal research, is that there are communication efforts from this other side, this other dimension that comes to us through our electronics. Now, I've done other videos about this. I've talked about this a little bit in my books. You can actually go all the way back to the 80s. There was a book called Phone Calls from the Dead. Kind of a creepy title from a book, but really what that's about is people getting phone calls, people getting text messages, people getting like a strange phone, like numbers left on their phones. For example, a deceased loved one, their phone is long disconnected, but they have a mysterious missed call from that number, all the way up to actual two-way conversations that have been reported with deceased people, Facebook messages that have been reported, text messages, and actual literal stuff. So people getting a message like, "Hi, I'm doing good," things like that from their deceased loved ones.
Yes.
So what this tells us is that they're able to access our electronics. So there's no shame in just sending them messages and communicating to them, knowing that they're probably getting the message. That doesn't guarantee you're going to get a reply back, but there's a few cases where people do get replies back, even if there's a little tiny chance. That is kind of exciting. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. And I want to say something to any of you that might be questioning this too, is that when you go, you'll be a consciousness that continues. And if you've got ones that are on the earth and you realize, why wouldn't you want to be there with them and to communicate with them? So often there's a feeling of, why are you pretending I'm dead? I'm still here. I'm still around you. Well, naturally you're grieving the loss of the person's physical presence, but that doesn't mean you need to end the relationship with them, as you're saying, Cyrus. It's so important to remember. Actually, in the 1920s, I think it was, there was a lady who lost her son. A book was written about it, a movie was made, where they both had learned, was it Morse code or it was telegraph? What would you call that?
Could have been either way. Could have been either. I think they had Morse code back then, yeah.
Yeah, and they had both learned it. And I believe he went off to war and was killed. And so there was a whole tapping and a whole communication that started through that. So it's not new. It's been around for a long, long time. And the evidence that was brought through was quite interesting with that too.
Maybe I'll try to research that. Or you can, if you find out a specific case, I can put that in the link below.
I will. I'll pull that up for you.
So the second thing to try when you're grieving. So first thing would be. Go ahead and send messages on the phones, on the social media pages. Actually, I just did that myself to my brother a couple days ago. I'm like, hey, can you read this message? If you can, try to reach me when I astral project. And here is a code word, so I put in bananas. So like if I astral project and I see my brother and he says bananas, then I'll know that he read my message on Facebook. So that's a little experiment I'm trying right now, and we'll see if that happens. I don't see him that much when I project, but I have on a few occasions. So if it happens again, that's something I can test out. The next thing is so when you're at, for example, if you're at a holiday dinner, technically I guess we're not supposed to be at dinner with each other, but just forget about that for a second. If you're at a holiday dinner, you could keep a chair empty for the loved one. So that, of course, comes down to the concept that they can be in this dimension interacting with us, like in the film Ghost with Patrick Swayze, for example, so they can be down here, invisible to us, but interacting on this frequency if they want to come down like that. So they could actually be sitting on a chair, even though you can't see them. They could theoretically be there. And if you have that intention that you want them to be there, then there's a pretty good chance they're going to hear that, and then they're going to take they have all the time in the world and more because they seem to be able to manipulate time. So there's no reason they can't take in their schedule to come, sit with you on, at a table. So yes, some family members may think you're crazy, but that's I guess another topic to deal with. But what do you think, Cynthia?
Yeah, I think so. And I'm actually talking about time. I've had evidence come through before where two sisters in two parts of the country, where the evidence I brought about them being around was on the same day. So it's like they were saying, we were with both of you at the same time. I thought that was rather interesting. But another thing that I see is that somebody, you may go and you may hold something belong to them or that has an emotional connection to them. And in that moment, you're actually drawing them to you. So that's something you can do is hold something that was theirs that has a connection or reminds you of them. It's not that we need that to make the connection. It means that you may personally open to allowing them to come close, because they actually can't come close if you don't let them. You can actually say, because you're always in charge. We may not be aware we're in charge, but you can be pulling your loved ones close. And don't ever think for a minute that they don't hear you, because they do. So if somebody says to me, Cynthia, can you tell them this? I say, well, they can hear you. A medium is really more about allowing you to build your own connection. It should strengthen your own connection to know they're still around. And if you know they're around, what signs are you listening? Right?
Right, and that kind of leads into a third kind of, if you want to call it technique, I don't know, but when it comes to kind of working through the grief and becoming more receptive, I think it involves singing.
I mentioned that, yeah. So sometimes when, we have grief, we can be blocking that connection because we're, grieving really to me is more of an earthbound thing, because when I connect with the spirit world, I'm always it's a wonderful feeling. It's like they get a party and we cry. And so, no, I'm not saying everybody gets a party, but I'm just saying it is we can be holding it. So sometimes the living is holding on to so much grief about those that have passed that they're kind of blocking that connection. So I have a practical suggestion is just to put some music on and sing to it and sing out your grief and allow that energy to keep moving. Because remember, everything is energy. So I don't care what you sound like, turn it up loud, don't be shy. You know that saying, like sing and dance like no one's listening? I think that applies here. It's just to allow it out. Singing is a great way because you're moving energy through the body, because grief is in the body. Because if you're really, when you tune into spirit, there is no grief, but when on the earth here, of course we all feel it, right? Mm-hmm. Of course we do.
So those are 3 techniques that might help, but any other general ideas about dealing with grief during the holidays? Is it a bit more difficult this year, you think?
It's a lot more difficult, and also the energy right now, we're all affected by a collective. Of course you are, because you hear about somebody, something great happens to them and you're happy, and something terrible happens, you're unhappy. So strengthening your own light, your own strength within you is important. But I want to say it's been more work this year because we've all been kind of isolated, so we don't have hugs. But here's something to try is, you have someone that you know, reach out to them, but try sending each other a hug right through. If you're having a Zoom call, do Zoom calls with people. Get connected with them, because you're already isolated, and it's already the holidays.
Yeah, the issue is the social isolation a lot of people are experiencing. Now, what's interesting is when you think about things like in a non-materialist point of view, people are not really as disconnected as you think we are, just like we're not as really as disconnected from deceased loved ones as we think we are. Well, the same goes with people here in this plane of existence. That's something we have to keep in mind, is that like other people we meet in this plane of existence are still souls, just like souls in the quote afterlife. So even, for example, people I've known in like a long distance basis, sometimes romantic connections and things like that, I'll notice that there can almost still be a similar thing as to when there's a deceased person in your life, in the sense that you could have like dream experiences with them and get almost like you get signs from somebody living here in this world.
Yes.
You know, like
yes.
I've had experiences like that happen, or having like a tandem dream experience of that person says, I had this interesting dream about you last night. Like, oh, I also had that dream at the same time. You know, and you find out you were having some kind of like a connection in a world outside of this one. Even you know, despite the fact that, let's say, someone's on the other side of the planet or whatever, like you may actually get experiences like that with living people here in this world. And so I guess the main point of that story is that with our deceased loved ones, it's the same thing. So even if they're in a different plane of reality, you could be having experiences with them. And so that maybe leads to the last technique or idea that I'll put out there, is to try to get a lot of sleep first of all, but pay special attention to your dreams. Because if you are really hoping to connect with your loved ones during the holidays, well, one avenue of communication that they have, even for people who don't have psychic or mediumship abilities, is the dream state. And very often, as I talk about on this channel, the dream state is or can be part of an astral projection state that you're just not interpreting correctly. You don't have all the memories of really being on that side, but you can have dreams that are little bits and pieces of memories of possibly you having experiences on the other side, which may actually involve seeing your loved ones. So if you get a dream and you have a loved one specifically giving you a message, you shouldn't dismiss that as this is just my subconscious trying to work something out or whatever it may be. There's a pretty good chance, and now it could be your subconscious, but there's a pretty good chance that it really is your loved one. It's just that you don't have the full memories back of the experience. So it's kind of stuck in a dream space. So pay attention to the dreams and ask, go ahead, pray and ask for dream contact, and then go to sleep. And as soon as you wake up, try to maybe write the dream down, because oftentimes with dreaming, the memory is there's kind of like a sliding scale. So you have really good memory of the dream within like 20 seconds of waking up. Then after like a couple of minutes, it just goes down, 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 down. And then sometimes you completely forget the experience after you've been awake for 10 minutes.
And when I just wanted to pipe in, that's the perfect time, is that when you wake up, if you can try and train yourself not to move, just try and train yourself to hold completely still. Because when I sleep every night, I have all kinds of communication with people I don't know in this, like their faces are familiar to me, but I don't know them here. So one of the things I've learned to do is to not move for as long as possible when I first wake up, because you can retain more of it by not moving.
I've done the same thing, and now I'm not a medium, but I've had crazy clairaudient experiences when I've been in that state of waking up but kind of not moving, or even still being a little bit asleep still, but like you're just conscious enough to be waking up. And that's when I've had people on the other side kind of beam in and make contact with me. And so I've had a number of experiences of basically like clairaudience in that state of just kind of lying in bed, where I've had very coherent conversations with deceased people in English. And it's literally quite a bit like a phone call. They're like, hey, can you hear me? I'm like, yeah, I can hear you. And then we can have a conversation. And I've done this with a couple of different deceased people that I know. And that's been through the lying in bed as you're waking up state. So that's something to try also. So I guess that's 5, maybe 6 things to try out. Do you have any last thoughts about grief and the holidays, or grief in general?
In grief in general, I would say that knowing that your loved ones are still here is one thing, and then of course missing them. Sometimes you do a ritual thinking that you're going to feel better. You've made something they made, or you've done something, done or gone somewhere, and you still feel that grief. And that's something where I want to say we need to be patient with ourselves. And if you need to learn about the grieving process, then that's an important thing, because that goes through your earthly experience. So sometimes in the grieving process, it's good to learn about these steps, but people get caught in being angry that someone's gone, and then they're angry at themselves for being angry. How can you be angry at someone who's gone? And this can be going on unconsciously. And so good people are generally too hard on themselves. So you've got to be really patient with yourselves. Things that irritate you for no reason might be because you're not giving yourself some time every day. We all have busy lives and busy doing things. Take some time to allow yourself to grieve. And if that's listening to a sad song, watching a movie, just allow yourself to release that.
Yeah, and don't feel ashamed because you're grieving either. And I guess I'm directing this a little bit toward the gentlemen out there who watch this channel, because sometimes it's a little bit of a male response to kind of hide your emotions or to try to tough it out.
Yes.
That's not always a healthy way to be. And it doesn't mean you're being less masculine if you are grieving, but that's a whole other topic for some other time. But I guess with that said, I will wrap the video up. So thank you for watching. This is Afterlife Topics Metaphysics. Please hit that subscribe button. That's the subscribe button, the notification bell, like the video, and if you share this with somebody who you think might be able to benefit from it, I do appreciate that. So I'll turn it back to Cynthia. Anything going on with you, and how do people reach you?
Okay. Well, you can go to my website, CynthiaRoseMedium.com. I'm on Facebook under Cynthia Rose Medium. I think I'm on Instagram and Twitter. I'm not so active on those, but I'm CynthiaRoseMedium.com, and you can connect with me there.
Great, thank you, Cynthia. And of course also AfterlifeTopics.com, and check out books like Understanding Life After Death, The Afterlife and Beyond, or Awakened by Death. All of those are available on Amazon. And so until next time, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.